Hi, I'd like to be hyper-rational and logical about actually an incredibly important topic. I don't know how many people, I don't think many people, especially Americans, know about this. France! In France, they actually stormed one of the satellite businesses of this particular company. I don't know, it was a week or two ago. I'm not endorsing that one way or another. I'm going to make an allusion to this. I'm going to call it Darkstone as the name of this corporate entity. Let's call it Darkstone, even though that's not its name. If you have two brain cells, you'll know exactly who and what I'm referring to. This is actually a great evil upon us. I'd like to lay it out for you, and I'm not interested in, wackadoodle, craziness where people fly off the handle. I mean, I even get emails like that. It's completely irrational to think that. I'd just like to talk a little bit of truth. By the way, the person who is the manager of this company, which is the largest in the world, just sold off 7% of his stake in the company. The last time he did that was right before the whole coup thing burst out. A lot of people are actually speculating, and it is speculation, that something is right around the corner, because if any corporation would have inside information about something coming down the pike, it would certainly be this person and those connected around him. This particular company owns, what is it now? It's fluctuated, but it's basically like $10 trillion, and there's also $10 trillion in assets, but also with controlling assets the company manages, which basically means they have control over. It's somewhere in the range of 15 trillion, not billion, trillion to 20 trillion, which is basically equal to the GDP of the United States. It actually manages more wealth than Japan and Germany have in their gross domestic product. In fact, only China and the United States have a larger GDP than what I'm going to refer to as Darkstone. Yeah, there's one entity that starts with a V that's second after this company. Let's just lay something out here. And I've had a few people give me palpable evidence over the months, and I've been waiting to make this video, and I keep my eye on a lot of stuff, and I've been keeping my eye on this. They've proven, and you can confirm this has happened to me. They'll leave me flyers in the mail, or they'll call up from anonymous numbers wanting to buy my house. My parents, their house in Florida, which I used to live in, they'll get several calls and letters in the mail every day. Not several letters every day, but calls every day about wanting to buy it. And I notice a lot of you actually told me this, that it's happening to you as well. And a few of you actually looked up, if you look up the entity that's interested in buying your house, you say, well, this is a relatively small business, and they're just interested in flipping real estate, making a profit. I don't begrudge anybody making a profit. But the people that have actually looked deeper, thanks to one gentleman, I'll leave you unnamed, that has shown that particular so-called mom and pop outfit for flipping real estate is actually, in fact, Darkstone. It's a company not named Darkstone. The largest corporation on planet Earth, not my opinion, and a hardcore fact. By the way, did you know that when you're renting, you're throwing your money away? I assume that everybody out there knows that renting is no different than throwing your money away. A poll was done saying that 40% of renters, I actually think it's higher than 40%, expect to never own a home. People say, well, the housing market's about to burst. Not raw land, by the way, which is what I keep my eyes on. I do not keep my eyes on apartments or residential or commercial real estate. I certainly do not. But if the housing bubble bursts, these renters are going to be bailing out this particular and other instances, specifically this institution. This entity that I keep referring to as Darkstone is buying up not only endless houses, but also 2 neighborhoods. And if the housing bubble does burst, we'll say, well, isn't that corporate entity going to lose an enormous amount of money? No, because as a renter, where nobody is basically allowed home ownership anymore, which is the American dream. I mean, just undeniably, not my opinion, the American dream is home ownership, is you're going to be bailing them out. So even if the housing bubble does burst, who cares? They own it. And they're actually using, of course, we all know that the Fed, I think everybody knows, that the Fed is printing money. To what extent the government is actually subsidizing this company that has over $10 trillion in assets, that I don't know. Here's something else. A lot of people confuse corporatism with capitalism, and you should not. Capitalism is one thing, corporatism is another. They're kind of often joined at the hip, kind of, sort of. But a fact is, and I don't think most people realize this, is that fascism should appropriately be called corporatism because it is a merger of state and corporate entities. And I can think of no better candidate on this earth than the one that is trying to buy everybody's house and home out. And they're offering really good money. But the money is spontaneously manifested, kind of like Harry Potter magic, right? Poof, poof into existence, and you offer the money. Is the money real or fake? Well, I'll let you speculate on whether I'm speculating on that. But if it is, it's kind of brilliant. If you're using instantly printed money to get all the land and commercial and residential real estate, isn't that total control? Isn't that the best deal ever? Who cares if the housing bubble bursts? People need to live somewhere. It means you have complete and total control over a vast majority of the population in perpetuity until the end of time. And they're never going to let go of it. They're not going to sell the real estate, even if the bubble bursts. The most important thing any evil dictatorial entity, whether it be corporate or otherwise, wants is power and control over others. I'm interested in really only being logical about this in this video. I'd like to read your comments on this. By the way, as I'm always interested and deeply into and understand greatly, far so more than most, metaphysical symbolism. Back in the ancient days, people would witness shooting stars, really larger ones, which did fall. Most of them are stony meteorites. They would actually find them out in the nether regions of nowhere where they would fall, and then of course they'd have a black molten fusion crust on them, and of course the ancient creationistic principle of since it's descending from heaven, the idea is that it's cast out of heaven, and the idea of being cast out of heaven to earth is of course synonymous with evil and Satan. So you have something falling from heaven, which is black. It has a black fusion crust on it in the case of a stony meteor. So we would be talking about a dark stone. Yeah. So the metaphysical symbolism of this company, which is trying to buy everybody out of house and home, that the name of that entity is no different than the metaphysical symbolism behind the fallen one, the angel which is cast out of heaven, i.e. Lucifer. Not to be taken literally, but it's kind of a perfect choice in names. For this company. By the way, I'm going to quote the person that just sold off 7% and sits at the head of this $10 to $20 trillion company, which is somehow, none of us will know, because we don't know the inner workings, connected at the hip with the United States government. This person said, behaviors are going to have to change. And here at, I'm going to call it once again, Darkstone, even though that's not the name of the entity. Here at Darkstone, we are forcing behaviors. By the way, if you want to know why all the movies and TV shows, people have been asking me a lot. It's called an ESG score. Why, like, all your TV shows and movies, not that that's important at all, are no good anymore. They're like, I'm going to use the word everybody's using. Woke, right? It's like, why is this, W-O-K-E, why? Actually, and all these companies that people keep talking about, nobody's actually talking about the real reason. They're actually being forced to do that due to an ESG score. Look up ESG. I'm not taking any position on this one way or another, but this is the actual reason behind it. So there is actually a great evil upon us. Here's something else, and don't take my word for this. You should do your own research. I'm not interested in conspiratorial, craziness or, just ludicrous, harebrained ridiculousness. This company has controlling interests in every major media outlet, not only in the United States, but partially so across the world. Controlling interest and serious ownership of every major pharmaceutical company. I'll let you guess what a few of those have been producing these past few years. What this is, and I will tell you, and I would stake my life on this, absolutely 100%, undeniably so, that what is going on is a plundering of the future. What this financial institution and some other ones are doing is plundering the future. If the housing bubble bursts, who cares? You're still going to have to rent from them. It's kind of like the company store. Like if the price of goods goes up and down, who cares? You have control over it. You have the control. Control to dominate you and me is food, water, definitely housing, and of course to declaw and defang you. You have a much more pliable serfdom, infinitely more pliable serfdom, if they're perpetually in debt, renting off you. You control the food, you control the housing, they're declawed and defanged and or neutered. Yeah, I don't know if that's happening right now or not. I'll let you take a guess on that. See, he told you, he says, here at Darkstone, we are forcing behaviors. Behaviors are going to have to change, he said. Yeah. They have a greater asset than every country on this earth, other than the GDP of China and the United States. I'll let you speculate and conjecture whether they're joined at the hip or not. Most of the people that I've talked with in my own research seems to indicate that this entity, Darkstone, is partnered to and with the WEF for global reset, and I actually mean that with every core of my being, and I would stake my life on it, that this entity, Darkstone, which is not called Darkstone, is partnered with, joined at the hip, like a Siamese twin, conjoined twins, I know, right? With the WEF for global reset. You can call that conspiratorial all you want. All evidence indicates that that is the case. This is the worst and most evil head of corporatism that you could possibly, or anybody could possibly imagine, actually. If this is true, then it means all digital money is, of course, regular money is coming to an end, and digital is, of course, the future. Homes now have become silver. I've heard a lot of stories from a lot of people that they really leaped before they looked. And they're like, wow, we bought this house 10 years ago, whatever, for $100,000. And our real estate agent said now that it's worth $600,000. Man, that's a lot of money. And people get so excited at making $500,000 profit, which they don't after taxes, of course. They sell it, and they realize that now they're sitting with $600,000 in their bank account, but they can't buy anything. Certainly nothing near or in a similar neighborhood to what they just sold. Like, wow, we should have, yeah, you made a lot of profit relative to what you paid for it, but now you can't buy anything with all that money. You got all the money now, a lot more than you had when you bought that place that you just sold, but now where are you going to go? I've heard that a lot from people, and also too in email. Please let me remind you again that renting is throwing your money away. And this is my position. I'll let you contest it if you like. I would rather live on 4 to 5 decent acres, and I have a lot more than that. 4 to 5 decent acres with a tiny little cabin or a used, and not new, used single wide or double wide, and say, that is mine, the deed is in my safe, then renting in a nice neighborhood or a nice apartment complex, wherever it's like, you go downstairs and there's Starbucks and the grocery store, oh, it's so convenient. Renting is throwing your money away. You can't retire renting. I mean, very few people can. It's just quite impossible. People don't realize, the housing bubble is about to burst, and all indications are that it is. But as a company, having absolute totalitarian dictator level control over you as being a perpetual serf and renting until the day you drop dead, and then the very next day renting it out to somebody else until the day they drop dead. It doesn't matter if the housing bubble bursts. $10 to $20 billion, not billion, excuse me, which is a lot of money, $1 trillion in assets. Control is control is control. There is a point at which there is so much money, and I've heard this from actual mega billionaires, of which there is only a few. They've said this. I can't remember if it was Musk or who, but I mean, it is accurate. There's a point, whether it's a corporation or a person, you have so much money that the money doesn't matter anymore. There's just like a limitless flow of money, essentially. The only thing that is above that money is control, which reaches far into the future. And this is what I meant by plundering the future. It's plundering the future. Here's something else really, really important, and it is exactly in line with this, except it's coming directly out of the EU. The EU's goals are the same thing as this titanic, mega-titanic, super-mega-titanic evil corporate entity with 10 to 20 trillion in assets. The Netherlands will buy out farmers at 100 to 120% of appraised value. This was approved, I think it was the 3rd of this month. The Dutch government is planning to buy up and shut down over 3,000, which, by the way, the Netherlands is the 2nd largest exporter, even though it's a tiny little country, in the world. 2nd largest. Over 3,000 farms in a bid to meet EU greenhouse gas emission targets. BS. Nonsense. This is true. The targets dictate that the Netherlands must have the emissions of nitrous oxide and ammonia by 2030. There's that 2030 number again. The Dutch government will use some of a dedicated 22 billion pounds program to buy out farm businesses at more than 100% of their value. See, the EU and the Netherlands are doing the same thing, this mega evil entity, Darkstone, I'm going to call it once again. Money doesn't matter. It's like people that are not too smart. Some of these, and the Dutch the folks in the Netherlands are actually extremely smart. Especially their farmers are easily the smartest on earth. But I'm sure some of them think, well, we're being bought out at 100 to 120% of what its appraised value is. It is great. All they have to do is that. Now they have control of the land, they control the food, they control the water, they control the housing. This is absolute totalitarian control over every. They want to treat you like a mushroom, feed you poop and keep you in the dark. That's how you grow a mushroom, by the way. Declawed, defanged, renting forever, which is throwing your money away. So you never have real ownership of land. Control your water, control your food. They have complete control, total control of it. I mean, it's like, it's something horrible. I'm not going to say. It's like having a collar around somebody's neck and like one of those dog barking zappers around something. And it's just every person out there. Total control. I have you on a leash with one of those zap collars around your neck. It's even worse than that, actually. Ultimately, as far as this one entity that's joined at the hip for plundering the future, joined at the hip with the WEF, is no different than the EU overpaying either 100% to 120% of appraised value. People's like, wow, that's good money. At least they're paying what it's worth. They're even paying over what it's worth. They're plundering the future. If you don't get that, then you're absolutely clueless. You're just hardcore clueless. You just really are. And if the housing bubble bursts, and every indication is that it is, it's going to change nothing. Who cares if the housing bubble bursts? It'd be like a slight road bump for the SUV of this 10 to 20 trillion dollar corporate entity. Road bump. Big deal. They got more money than God. The point has been reached, including the EU, where money is not important anymore. Money becomes useless in light of and with respect to absolute totalitarian control over everything you eat, where you live, what you can buy, what you can't buy, declaw you, defang you. No more housing ownership for you. We have total control. That, to them, is infinitely more important than money. Who cares if the housing bubble collapses? Don't care. They have total control over you until the end of time. And that is what plundering the future means. Tell me what you think in the comments. Try to be rational and logical, exactly as I've done in this video. And other than a couple minor speculations, I stand behind everything in this video as being true. You could refute it all you want, but the vast majority of what I said in this video is not speculation, that it is what's going on. Have a lovely week.